Hello and welcome to Self Talk. I'm Rachel Astarte. Today, I'd like to talk with you about boundaries. Boundaries are a very tricky subject for a lot of us, but we all tend to agree that we need them for a healthy relationship. So let's talk a little bit about what a boundary is and what a boundary isn't. A boundary is a kind of energetic protection that we need in order to keep ourselves safe from a kind of response from another human being that may not be acceptable to us. We could have boundaries around the way we are spoken to, for example. We could have boundaries physically around what we're comfortable, how we're comfortable being touched or not touched. We can have boundaries around our privacy, content we wish to share or don't share. We can have privacy boundaries, even when it comes to our solitude or our downtime need, needing time to just be quiet and peaceful without other people around. There are many different kinds of boundaries. And we have them with anyone that we have any kind of relationship with. That could be a partner, a family member, a friend, a colleague. So boundaries are important, and we can all agree with that. Where we get a little fuzzy is how to create those boundaries. And we're going to talk about that in a second. Let's talk briefly about what a boundary is not. And I think that will help to understand how boundaries can be created in a healthy way. A boundary is not a wall. We don't put up walls between ourselves and other people. In fact, a boundary is quite the opposite. A boundary allows for better communication between you and another person. So a wall is something that we hide behind and something that we would create in order to keep ourselves separate from another human being. And that's not necessarily a healthy thing. Maybe in some toxic relationships, a wall is required, but that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about healthy boundaries that allow relationships to thrive. When is it difficult to create a boundary? A lot of people who are very sensitive and concerned, empathetic, people-pleasing people, I would fall into that category at certain points in my life. It's difficult to create a boundary because there are two concerns. One, on one end of the spectrum, is that we'll just hurt someone's feelings by creating a boundary. On the other end of the spectrum, we are afraid we'll be rejected entirely. The relationship will collapse, right? That's not necessarily what's going to happen if it's done correctly, if the boundary creation is done correctly. And we'll talk about how to do that as well. But what's very important to understand is that our need to create a boundary allows us to retain our energy so that we can give back in the relationship. So when we ask, for example, for solitude, right? And we say, I need a half an hour at the end of my workday to not talk to anybody. Please don't bother me. And there's your partner knocking on the door. Yeah, where's the vegetable peeler? I can't find it. And that's a boundary crossing, right? Because you've made it very clear that you need this time, but your partner isn't really honoring that. And that can hurt, right? So to express a boundary, we need to understand that there are two aspects of a boundary. When we think about boundaries in general, we think it's a line drawn in the sand that says, I'm on this side and you're on that side. This is a no, like the big no written across the sand. To some extent, that's true. No, you cannot come in my room when I'm asking for privacy. So yes, you're saying no, but you're not rejecting the other person, and you're not telling them that they are not loved or wanted. If they receive it that way, it's very important to understand that that's not your concern. That's their concern. That's why creating a boundary in a healthy way is so important. The way we say it, the way we present it. And I'm going to teach you how to do that. So when we create a boundary, and it could be about touch, as I said, If you come up behind me and you hug me, it makes my heart stop. Can you just either touch me quietly or ask my permission? Can you put your arms around me, or whatever it is? Or someone gives you criticism and they're very harsh about it. It's like, well, you know what? I appreciate the criticism, but the way that you said it was a little bit harsh. So in the future, it would help if you maybe present this as a conversation that we can have. All right, these are just examples of boundaries and the way to present them. Again, that doesn't eliminate that feeling that maybe we're going to upset the other person. And yes, it's true. It's not your responsibility how someone else takes your boundary. But there is a way that can help you understand how important a boundary is and why you're not intentionally hurting someone by creating one. There are two parts to a boundary, not one. We often think it's just the one, the line in the sand, my energy, your energy. Don't cross this line. There's another aspect to it. So yes, you are saying no, but at the other end of this, the other part of a boundary is that you are protecting the other person as well as yourself. It's really important to understand this. Boundaries are in place for the benefit of both people. What does that mean? Well, if someone is honoring my boundary that they not yell when they talk to me, that's great. My energy is protected. If I let them yell at me and I just go, wow, that's just who they are, what's going to happen over time? I mean, think about it for yourself in your own life. What happens if you have a boundary that someone crosses on a regular basis? What happens inside of you? You feel rejected. You feel upset, angry, depressed. Depressed is the end of the spectrum, because what depression really is bottled up, unreleased anger. So it's very important to understand that when we create and enforce a loving boundary, we are then protecting the other person from our resentment, our anger, our passive aggressive discomfort that may occur as a result of our boundary not being honored. So boundaries are in place for the benefit of both people. And you can even present it this way. So this is what I want to make very, very clear. Boundaries are not just for you. You're helping the relationship get stronger by creating and enforcing that boundary. So what do you do when someone doesn't honor your boundary? A lot of times it's remembering to stay calm, remembering to stay grounded, and come from that clean and clear place in your body when you enforce your boundary. Remember when I said X, that didn't feel good when you didn't listen to me. So let's try that again, right? So you're honoring the fact that people are human. Maybe they didn't understand the boundary at first. Maybe you didn't make it clear enough at first. Whatever the issue is, the point is that you are stressing that you and this other person are in a relationship, and this boundary is important to you. And by them honoring that boundary, you're saving them from your upset. That's what's really at the core here. So try to keep that in mind the next time you consider what boundaries you need in your life. It's a new year, and this is a great resolution for those who make them, is to develop some healthy boundaries around your space, your energy, and keep in mind that by relaying them in a loving tone, in a kind way, you're actually protecting the other person from your pain. So it's not as simple as just saying no. It's saying no and yes, I care enough about this relationship to create this boundary, to make sure that you are not at the other end of my anger and my rage. So I hope that helps a little bit with boundaries. And I do thank you for tuning in. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time.